This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, and welcome you all to another Friday rambling of mine. I have found a few things that I want to talk about this week, which is very exciting because we all love listening to me waffle on, don't we? so that's good. Now, interestingly, there's 3 games I'm going to talk about. I think the one from the title of this video, I think the one that people will think that I'm most hyped about might be Mass Effect. But it's not. The one I'm actually most hyped about out of the 2 main games in this particular vlog is Prey, and we'll get onto that in a second. So we're going to talk about Mass Effect Andromeda, we're going to talk about Prey, and we're going to talk a tiny bit about The Last of Us Part 2, because I've already done a vlog on that, and if you haven't caught that, you can go back and I show off the full trailer without me waffling on, and then I talk about it sort of separately and how excited I was. So I posted that up on the night of PSX when they announced it. So you can go and watch that on its own. So I will talk about it a little bit at the end of this video, but I won't go on too much about it because I've already done the vlog on it. So, interestingly, there's been this sort of massive hole in my heart ever since Dead Space kind of disappeared into the ether. And Dead Space, anyone who knows me, and knows me well, or has watched my vlogs from the past, knows that Dead Space was one of my beloved franchises. I mean, it was the first platinums I ever went for. It was the first achievements that I maxed out on Xbox. So I maxed out on Xbox 360 for achievements. I maxed it out on PS3 for trophies, and I just did it for 1 and 2, and then 3 came along and just crushed me because it was just, you know, they just lost the plot with it. When it came to story and it came to weapons, they just got it completely wrong and missed the whole point of what the first 2 games were really about, and the mystery of it all, and how cool the weapons were, because they weren't weapons, they were things turned into weapons. That was the whole point, people. Anyway, that aside, so there was this hole sort of in my heart where there was no game like that. You know, Resident Evil had gone off track, so that was nothing like it, and there was no real kind of horror game like that. I guess the only thing that was relatively close to it was maybe The Evil Within, which was kind of but that was really kind of sort of old style gooey horror. You know, Dead Space had a tone to it, it had a feel to it, it had a real alien vibe to it. It was so well done in the first 2. So when I first saw the footage of Prey, I was like, whoa, hang on a minute, this could be the very game that gets me back to this kind of world. I mean, I know this is a first-person game rather than a third-person game, but it's the same kind of environment. You're in space. You're in a, you know, locked. You're trapped. Well, we don't know if you're trapped, but you're certainly in this space station called Talos 1. And it's a massive environment, but you are confined within it, so far as we can tell. You can go out into space and stuff, but we'll get onto that. So the more I looked at the footage of this game, when they've sort of dripped it to us, I was like, well, this is interesting, because Prey is a franchise that has sort of died away, and it was completely different to this. So they've bought the rights to this. Arcane Studios have bought it, and it's being published by Bethesda. So it's the same company that do Dishonored that are doing this game. And if you look at the footage, this will all be going on behind me while I'm speaking. If you look at the footage, you will see that, I think you'll notice that this is probably the Dishonored engine being used for another purpose without any doubt. So it does, you know, you do get that feel, and it's fantastic. The Dishonored, well, I should say the Dishonored 2 engine. So, yeah, so I'll rattle through some things that I noticed from this. This is the gameplay footage that was released recently. I think it was released at the Game Awards or something. And this is 2 of the devs showing off really cool stuff in actual gameplay. So it's just them running through these different bits. And one of the first things they showed off was the ability called Mimic. So you have aliens, sort of, something's happened on this thing where there's been an alien attack or something, because it's ram-packed full of these alien creatures. And they're almost like shadows, but they have this ability to mimic themselves as items. So they could just be like a radiator or a cup or a, you know, and then you're walking along and it just literally, this item will just become a monster. So it's got that immediate kind of like scare factor because you've no idea what's coming. And that same ability can be learnt by you as the player as well. So if you need to get into a tight area, or, you know, through into, you know, you can really mix it up when it comes to it, like turn yourself into a bloody coffee cup just to get through a gap and then reappear as a person. So some really, really cool sort of abilities you can get in it. And this kind of, again, this is kind of touching on Dishonored kind of features, but obviously in a much more futuristic environment. So the mimic ability was really cool, and then they started showing off all the guns. So you started off with like a wrench, and you're beating the crap out of stuff that jumps at you with a wrench. I guess that's right at the very beginning. And then in the same clip, you see the guy pick up a pistol, so you've got a handgun, and they also show off a shotgun at some point. But then you get some really, really cool, you know, not spacey weapons as such, but futuristic type weapons and different weapons. They showed, the first one they showed off was called the glue gun, and that can actually be used as a weapon or a tool for navigating. So, it is as how it sounds. It shoots out massive lumps of glue and just sticks to anything that's coming at you. So they show you these enemies running towards you, and you just glue gun them, and they all freeze like stuck. And then he just dropped. I don't know what he dropped on them. It must have been like an ability or a match or something, and then just set them on fire. It was really, really cool. So, and then the flip of that was he was running around with the glue gun, and he kind of sprayed it up a wall up to a balcony, and then used it to run up to the balcony. So you can use it to navigate yourself to areas that would otherwise be unavailable to you. So that was really cool. The glue gun, I think, is going to be a big part of that game. And they showed off a move called Kinetic Blast, which was in, they used it in, it was in combo with Mimic, I think, in the clip. So you were mimicking yourself as like a ball or something, I can't remember. And then he used Kinetic Blast and pushed himself off the ground up to a ledge. So there's lots of different ways you can kind of mix things up. They said that experienced players, so I guess you can kind of you can make all this stuff happen for yourself throughout your gameplay. And I've got all this stuff sort of written down of notes I took while I was watching it. And they've got the recycler charge, which it can be used to like declutter an area. So if you need to get through and there's loads of crap all in front of where you need to get to, you can throw this thing down and it just absorbs all the stuff that's in the room or in that area and puts it into this sort of recycler thing. And it seemed to be like a combo use. So you could then use all of that stuff to then use that to make yourself new weapons and stuff. So, and then they made, using the recycler stuff, they made I think it was like a pack or something that could make you hover and I think let you go into space and hover, and like a jetpack almost. So there's some really cool stuff in there like that. And what else did they have? They had the blimey, I can't read my own handwriting here. So they had the, oh right, okay. So fabrication system uses play. Yeah. So when you do want to build stuff from the recycler and all that sort of thing, there's actually a fabrication station that you go to, which again reminds me a little bit of Dead Space. You go to these fabrication stations and you make yourself stuff out of all the stuff you've collected, it looked like. And that's where they made this pack and everything that you could use in space. So I guess they're planted around the station. You need to sort of find them, and then they'll be on your map and all that sort of stuff. And then you can go back to them and build stuff that will help you get around. So that was very, very cool as well. And again, well, going back to it, it showed you him going out of this sort of the sort of anti-gravity place and then went into space and was floating around outside the space station. It actually shows you a massive shuttle in space as well. And that was really cool. Again, reminded me a lot of Dead Space, where you can, you know, fly around and pick things up or get to other sides of places. Leverage ability, there was an ability where it's an ability where you can pick up really heavy items and throw them, so you can almost use them as a weapon. But they said, somewhere in the clip, they said that don't use it unwisely, because if you do stuff like that and it's really noisy, it attracts the attention of the aliens. And when they showed off that clip, it actually attracted the attention of either the hardest or one of the hardest aliens that jumped out, and they called it the Nightmare. I think the guy says at the end of the video, you won't hear it because I'm only showing you the footage, but he goes, this thing's called the Nightmare for a reason. And it's sort of running at him. It slaughters him, I think. Massive sort of shadowy type creature. So I just, the whole vibe of it was just absolutely amazing. I mean, every time I look at it, I just think that's absolutely for me, that game. And I cannot wait for it to come out. And it's not that long away. They keep saying spring 2017, so they don't have an actual date yet. So we've got to be thinking around March or April for that, I would reckon. So, uber excited. I can't remember the first time I saw a clip. It was probably about a year ago, and I just thought, ooh, and I got real hints of Dead Space right off the bat with it. Didn't see much of it, but just saw enough to think that that's taken me to a place that I want to be. People, not in real life, but you know. But it looks absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to get my hands on that game. I will most definitely be getting that at launch. So there you are. So there's Prey. And hopefully I've rambled on long enough to let you see all of that gameplay footage. I think there was about 8 minutes of it or so. So it was, I was hoping to let you see all of it because it was very, very cool. I could have just showed you the trailer, which is quite cool as well. But I thought actually seeing the gameplay was far, far more interesting. And I think trailers sometimes give off a false feeling. Not that their trailer does, but sometimes it just shows you the exciting sort of story bits and doesn't show you enough of what you'll physically be doing in game, which is what we all want to know, really. So, yeah, so that gameplay footage is fantastic. I loved watching that today. So, onward to Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, this game kind of concerned me for a little while because I was like, how are they going to move on from Shepard? How are we going to move on from that galaxy? How are we going to move on from that whole story? Like, what's the big bad in this story? I mean, to some extent, I think Mass Effect got too big. I remember thinking, like, what? Shepard's become like a massive entity being? What? What's happening? I think in my game he became one of those big fecking things in this. I don't know. I don't know what happened, people. It was all very confusing, and it all became a bit like, come on now, you know what I mean? Can we not just have an ending where a Shepard is either dead or alive? Like, why does it have to turn into a being of some description or a bloody I didn't get it, people. Honestly, didn't. It was a massive, like, what? I mean, it wasn't like, it didn't ruin my life or anything, but it was just a bit like, I like games that I can connect with on a level of, now I know we're talking about, you know, when I say realistic sometimes, and then someone goes, we're talking about Batman, you know, we're talking about man in a giant bat suit. It's like, yeah, but you can believe that someone could learn martial arts, could dress up in a suit, could have gadgets, and could fight people. That's kind of realistic. You could do that. Somebody could do that, you know. Just do it somewhere where there's high buildings. You don't do it in a little village, it wouldn't work. But you know what I mean? Like, I want something tangible. I want something I can feel like could actually happen, right? So it's like that with movies. Like, if I see too much CGI and it doesn't look like a real machine, or it doesn't look like a real person or an animal, or it's like, I'm just not believing it. So Mass Effect became that. It became too unbelievable for me to actually care at the end. And this is why Mass Effect 1 was it was my favourite Mass Effect of all three of them. I know that's kind of controversial. I know people preferred probably 2. I hear more people say they preferred 2 to any of the others, but I liked Mass Effect 1 because it was a proper RPG, and because it had a tight story, it had a good villain, and it had a bigger story outside of the villain, which kept you wondering. And to me, they got that bigger story pretty much all wrong at the end. Like, it kind of went okay. 2 kind of self-contained itself because it was kind of about that journey. And 3, yeah, I mean, it just became a bit too unbelievable. So with Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm hoping they kind of like bring it down to, well, not Earth because we won't be in that galaxy, but you know what I mean. Bring it down to a planet and Earth it a bit. And make us believe a bit more in it. So, from what I'm seeing, and again, obviously while I'm rambling away, you're seeing all this footage, it looks like, and although when I first heard about Mass Effect Andromeda, I heard the developers say it's not going to be as big as Dragon Age, it's not going to be as open as that, but that's not what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now is, in fact, they're showing us a wide open galaxy that we can explore at our leisure. We're seeing Makos where you can go down to planets and investigate the planets. You're seeing the ability to make your own weapons, to make your own armor. So these are all Dragon Age things. This is I mean, from what they're telling us now, this is a massive game. You know, this is a big open world, open universe experience. So it's not what they kind of said at the beginning, where it was going to be tight and more linear and what have you. It's actually turned into the opposite of that. It sounds like it's actually going to be massive. And that would make my day. Because that's the Mass Effect I wanted. I want a universe that I can explore and I can go wherever I like and I can create my own story. I know that there'll be an end point to a given linear story in the game, but I want that journey to be mine, and I want to take that journey at my pace and in my direction, which I think is what they've done. So that'd be very, very cool if they've done that. I mean, there was all sorts of cool stuff going on. I mean, there was the female character was walked into a room and she was actually scanning the area with something on her arm. What that was picking up, I'm not quite sure. Obviously going to pick up things of use. You would think materials or life signs, that sort of thing. So that was really, really cool. It was showing off loads of different weapon features, loads of different. The Mako riding over the planet was brilliant because again they just removed that whole thing from Mass Effect 1, and then in Mass Effect 2 you're just scanning a planet like round and round and round, which was addictive for a while, but then it was like, can't I just have the Mako and go for a ride? Because if you give us the Mako, I mean, I'm not well, maybe they will let us go on every planet, but if you can go on at least all of the reasonable planets like you used to do before, then you've made a game where there's something to go and look at that's of interest, that will go, wow, look at that. Almost like Skyrim when you were just walking and discovered things. That's what you want. Like if you can do that in a game where it's set on Earth and wherever Skyrim is, it seems to have 2 moons, so it can't be but you know what I mean? If you're sat on a planet and you can have moments of discovery like that, surely to Christ you can have millions of them in a universe or a galaxy or whatever. I mean, there's so much. And with the right imagination and the right team and the right developer, you're just going to have wow moments all over the place. I mean, that to me, like, I still can't believe there's not a space game on console that is like Skyrim in the sense of, like, I can just go and just try and just discover stuff. And I think that's what people were hoping for from No Man's Sky. And, to some extent, that's kind of what it is. But it doesn't give you that wow moment. It doesn't give you that, because there's no atmosphere to it. It from the little I saw, there's no vibe. There's no undercurrent of story. There's nothing driving you in that game. Like, you just kind of don't care. You just like loot, build, loot, build. You just living around this universe. You don't really care enough. Whereas with something like Skyrim, you invest in the world, and so to me, it's always surprised me that consoles don't have a game like that where you can just go and explore the universe. And the closest thing that we got really was probably Mass Effect 1, and then they just started making an action game the more it went on. So I'm very, very excited for Mass Effect Andromeda. I hope everything that we're seeing from this clip is in fact what we're going to get, a wide open universe that we can just go and explore and give us the freedom to land on planets, to discover all this. Imagine a game that let you land on a planet, right? I'm not saying this is what Mass Effect's going to be, because we're probably a bit away hardware-wise to have this. But imagine a world where you could land on an uber amount of planets and have the content that Skyrim's got. Imagine that, right? That, in my eyes, is where gaming has to go in open world environment gameplay. If you're going to have a space game, that for me is the ultimate space game. All right, I'm not saying, you'd have necessarily all of those side quests and Skyrim on its own is 100 hours, but to have all of those big discovery areas at least, and play, and living beings on those planets, not just dust and dirt and all of that sort of stuff, would just be incredible. Imagine that. Absolutely insane. Now, obviously, we're a bit away power-wise to have that kind of magnitude, but there's certainly enough there to have an element of planets with an element of it. So I'm hoping we get that. Now then, Mass Effect is now done. I've rambled on enough, people. Well, actually, I haven't. I'm still interested to know just how well this... I think you can either play as the sister or the brother in this game, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. I'll probably play as the sister, because I think most people will play as the brother anyway. As I always say recently, I much prefer playing as female characters at the moment. Just my thing. So I will most definitely play it as the female character. So I'm really interested to see how that story pans out. I'm really interested to see how it lines up, because there's no doubt that they'll make more of these. I mean, this is a reboot. Well, it's not a reboot, but it's the start of a new story. So we're definitely going to be looking at Andromeda 2 and Andromeda 3, or Mass Effect something and Mass Effect something after this one at some point. So, yes, so there you are. So that's probably all I've got with Mass Effect at the moment. But so finally, and by no means least, I was well, as I said in my last vlog, I called the fact that they were going to announce The Last of Us 2 at PSX. I kind of called it in one of my live streams about a week or two before, and it didn't surprise me that they did it, but I was still gobsmacked, and I was still like, honestly, I was so emotional when I saw, because the minute I saw that first image of the camera panning back and the rusty car, even before I'd seen the Firefly image on the sign when it comes back, I knew it was going to be The Last of Us. I just felt it. I just knew immediately. I was already typing it into my son, as I said in my last vlog, that there's Last of Us 2, The Last of Us 2. And and even at that, the excitement kind of built. And then the minute I saw Ellie's face, it was like, I kept the tears back, people, I did. But I got really tearful. It was like, I got really emotional. And like the only game that's ever come, the only thing that's ever come close to that is when I saw the Star Wars Force Awakens trailer for the very first time, and I saw Han and Chewie, and I saw Leia, and I think Leia was in it. Anyway, you know what I mean? Like I didn't get that feeling at all with the sort of the other three that Lucas did after the originals. So there was something about that one, and it was just the power of that world hitting me again in the manner that I wanted it to. And when I saw Ellie, and then even when Joel appears, and I was like, you see that shadow coming in, and it's like, it's got to be Joel, it's got to be Joel. It was just so well done. It's just so, the whole place just erupted when they announced that game. And I have to say, I watched the panel afterwards, which this was after I did the vlog actually, but I watched the live panel that they had at PSX with Neil Druckmann and Troy Baker and all I can remember is for some reason I'm having a mind blank on the poor girl's name, and I can only remember at Vulcan Salute, which is her Twitter account. It'll come back to me in a minute. So the three of them are there, the girl that plays Ellie, and so the three of them are chatting away about, well, they're trying to chat away about The Last of Us Part 2, but every time they're asked a question they can't say anything. So it was almost the most pointless panel you've ever heard. But it was really nice to see how emotional they were revisiting those characters. And Troy Baker even said that out of every part he's ever done, it's that character, it's Joel's character, where he often sits down and thinks, what's that guy up to now? He knows it's a fictional character, but in his mind he's like, what's Joel up to? What would he be doing now? What's going on in that world, And she was the same. And it was interesting to see that they were touched like that. The same guys come back for the music as well, who did the original one, Gustav Blah, that I can't remember the last name of again. It's terrible. Such a big fan, and I'm forgetting names all over the place. And Neil Druckmann said, well, he knew, like, a lot of people wanted different characters. They wanted the same world with different people in it. And I was like, no. You can't have, like, that world and that story is about Joel and Ellie. Yeah, like, there is no... If you try and make that game with other characters, it won't have that vibe, and it won't have that connection, and it won't have any of that love or care that was in the first one. If you actually sit down and think about what it was that you emotionally connected to with that first game, it's not the world, it's those two characters, and it's how those two characters coped in that world, and the amazing and awesome acting that came from the two of them, and the amazing direction that came from Neil Druckmann to get that game the way that it is. Has to be like, that world has to be about those two characters. And Neil Druckmann it clearly feels the same way, and he said so in the thing. He said, The Last of Us is about these people.
No one loves these characters more than we do, and we would not do this if we didn't feel like we had the right idea. And the part 2 is really kind of doubling down on that, to say we believe in this so much. We're not trying to avoid it, and we like, I've played with so many of the ideas that had different characters, and it never felt right. The Last of Us is about these two characters specifically. So yeah, the part 2 is, it's saying this is going to be a larger story. This is a complementary story to the first game, but the two together are going to tell this much larger tale. And all I ask is the fans of the first ones, put some faith in us, trust us, we're going to do right by you. So
It can't be about anyone else, he said. But he said, I think people's concern is that you try and create a story for them that doesn't feel right. And he said, look, I wouldn't make this game if I didn't feel like we had a story to tell with these two people. He says, so put your trust in us, we won't let you down. And he said that to the audience, who whooped and cheered and blah. So I have no doubt. I mean, Naughty Dog have never let me down in any of the franchises that have interested me that they've done. And initially with Uncharted 4, I wasn't disappointed. I was just taken back as to how different Uncharted 4 was to the other three. But that was a natural effect of different. No, I haven't said that. Neil Druckmann did the second one, but it was a natural effect of having them come off the back of the Last of Us. I think there was a massive influence from that game, and obviously the woman that did the third one had moved on somewhere else. She's now working at, I think, is she not at Visceral doing the story? Oh, I can't remember. She's gone somewhere to do the story game. There's an actual Star Wars story game coming, which is a ways off yet, but she's in charge of that. So I'm really looking forward to that. If it's the third person cover and shoot type stuff like Uncharted was, and she's going to make a great job of that, because Uncharted 3 was my favourite. Anyway, I digress, people. So Uncharted 4 was kind of a different direction, but it was still a great game, and I've still got it, and I'll still play it umpteen times. So they've never let me down, though. They've never. I don't think Naughty Dog will ever do something that they don't feel like there's a purpose to. And I think for that reason we'll never see an Uncharted 5. I think Uncharted is done. Like they said, we've got a story to finish with this character. Like, we need to finish off his story. Perfect way to do it is PlayStation 4 with the launch, well, not the launch, but you know, that gen starting, so they could show off the new engine that they were building for these sorts of games. And no doubt The Last of Us is going to use that very engine, which will make it much easier for them. I mean, that element of work is done. So I'm so excited for it. But you are looking at probably 2018, maybe 2019, depending on how they get on with the time of things. A lot of people are saying it won't happen until 2019, but I've got a feeling 2018. I think 2019 is really far away for a game that's already got an engine. You know, when they did the first one, I think they were working with a brand new engine and stuff. And as I say, because they've already done the engine for the Uncharted 4, it could be half the work's done for them, and they can just concentrate on the story and you know, building the elements that are Last of Us specific. So there you are. So, I mean, there's so much to look forward to. I mean, just with, like, that's just, I know they're not exclusives other than The Last of Us, but you've got certainly on PlayStation 4, we've got, like, Spider-Man coming, we've got Days Gone coming, we've got God of War coming, we've got, there's others as well that I'm now forgetting. There's just, like, games galore coming, Last of Us 2. There's a few others as well. Horizon Zero Dawn, which is around the corner. I mean, there's so many games coming to get excited about. It's ridiculous on the PlayStation. So Sony are really ramping it up at the minute. I mean, I know there's been a bit of, like, Microsoft have been popping out exclusives, and the sort of PlayStation ones seem to be further and further off. Last Guardian's just come out, not my cup of tea, but so there's so much going on with PlayStation at the minute. I mean, I honestly wouldn't game anywhere else at the minute. There's just so much to look forward to. However, having said that, you know, that's not me downing Xbox. It's just those are the types of games that I like. So I bought my Xbox One specifically to play the Xbox One only games. So, and I haven't really done that because I haven't had this massive urge to. Like, I was expecting to be really excited for Gears of War 4, but I just haven't got the urge to play it, so I've sort of left it until I see it cheap. I still haven't played the new Halo game. I still haven't played. I mean, I've got a few games there. I got Quantum Break as a present, and I've only got halfway through it and not finished it, so I really need to go and play that at some point because it was quite good, to be fair. It was a good enough game. But anyway, it's just down to taste, and it's just down to what takes me fancy, really. And the games that are taking my fancy are by far on the PlayStation. So we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully the launch window for these games isn't as far off as they seem, because like Spider-Man and Days Gone felt like they were miles away still, as did God of War, as does Last of Us Part 2. I mean, we could be looking at a PS5 launch for half of these. You know, I think if that happened, I think they'd still be on PlayStation 4, of course. But, you know, if they're talking about a 5-year life cycle on consoles, I mean, that's going to be on the brink of a PlayStation 5. And they said they weren't going to wait 7 years to... Mind you, they said they weren't going to wait 7 years to bring out better consoles. It could be that what they meant by that was PlayStation 4 Pro or whatever. But even Microsoft said that they weren't looking at the same turnaround of hardware anymore. So I think we're going to see much more constant upgrades. So PS5... We're not going to see another iteration of PS4, I don't think. Pro will probably be it. That's a midway thing. And in my opinion only, and it's not fact of any kind, you would expect the Scorpio to come out next year, which means you're then looking at a year after that, you're looking at a PS5. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do. And it'll be interesting to see when these games come out. And it'll be interesting to see if I ever stop talking. So there you are. There's my thoughts for this evening. It has been an honour and a privilege, as always, chatting to you in this vlog tonight. I'm going to go off, enjoy my beer. Well, I'm going to put this video together, then I'm going to, while enjoying my beers, and then I'm going to chill out to some music and stuff and enjoy my Friday evening. I hope you all do the same, and I shall see you guys soon. Take it easy. Bye.